Hello, and welcome to Everyday Creative. In addition to being Mr. Everyday Creative, I also play in a band called Frankie and the Pool Boys. I love this sign that one of my favorite bands, Tiki Orchestra, uses on the front of their keyboard, and I wanted to make one for the Pool Boys. So, I did some research and mostly found things I didn't want. Boring fonts, laser cut, or CNC routing. They just make the sign look so generic. Also, I wanted to use a blowtorch. Fred Lammers is a Norwegian artist, and he designed a logo for us a few years ago, so I digitized it and made outlines using Adobe Illustrator. I then resized the image to fit on a 5.5-inch piece of pine. After taping the pages to the board, I used carbon paper, yes, they still make it, and traced the image onto the board. To give it an authentic handmade look, I used a Makita hand router to gouge out around the letters. The router is not super precise, so there is a random element to the cuts. The whole process took about an hour and a half and required total focus on my part. I cleaned up the corners and the narrow parts with chisels and gave the whole thing a thorough sanding with 80 grit sandpaper. Then it was time to use the torch, which I had zero experience with. Because this propane torch only comes with a narrow focus tip, I tried holding the tip about 5 inches away from the board and painting with the heat. But I noticed that much of the wood was unaffected, so I started holding the tip closer, which charred the wood. But that's kind of the point, right? Well, that was interesting. I would describe my wood burning skills as beginner, perhaps pre-beginner, but you're just burning wood, so it was a lot of fun. I think the hardest part about the whole thing was lighting the butane torch with that cheap sparker. So now I'm going to sand it and see what happens. I tried using the orbital sander to take down the top layer, but it was much too powerful and took off all the burn down to the bare wood. So I switched to using a sanding block, which was much more time consuming, but gave me a lot more control. After the first round of sanding, I just wasn't satisfied with the contrast, so I did another pass with the torch, trying to hit the pockets in the background area and trying to make the burn look more even. Then I did another pass sanding the foreground, and I was satisfied with the contrast. The final step was a coating with marine spar varnish. This is crucial as it seemed to age the color of the wood and give it a glossy, weathered look, exactly like the kind of sign you'd expect to see in a tiki bar. I attached the sign to the front of the keyboards with a small piece of Velcro that was screwed into the back. Though this was my first time making a sign like this and the first time using a torch, I thought it came out great, and I look forward to making many more of these. Hey, if you like what we're doing here on Everyday Creative, please subscribe. Thanks.